Welcome to Drams and Dragons, the podcast about fantasy and whiskey. My name is Gus Berger, and with me, as always, is Dustin Van Horn. And how you doing tonight, man?
Hey Gus, doing good. Had a kid accident a little bit ago. A kid busted her lip and her tooth real bad, so had some had some good old like ice on the face action. But I'm ready to. She's medicated, in bed, seems happy,
Yeah.
so ready to hang out.
So this week we're going back to the Heart Wild. We are going to be talking about the book Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames. It's the follow up to Kings of the Wyld, which we talked about a while back. And we've been sort of meaning to come back around to it. But first, whiskey.
Yay!
Yeah, whiskey. Um, I know you're having one of your rotation, right? Which one are you
Yeah,
going for?
yeah. I'm going to be having the Glenfiddich Gran Reserva tonight.
Yeah. Have you? I know the first time that you tasted that on the show, you were kind of. It's not that you didn't like it, but it was sort of had some notes you weren't a fan of. Has it changed in the months since then? Or it's been almost a year, right?
Well, I haven't had any since that. So
Well, do you want to revisit it a little bit?
yeah, I
I'm
think
just
so.
curious. Like, has your palate changed? Is it
hmm Well, what we're
no?
going to do too, I have some ice water here.
Mhm.
I've been inspired by my experience with the Johnny Walker Blue Label, where
Yeah,
the cold water changed the flavor and really made it like a way better experience. So I'm going to try that with the
great.
Glenfiddich tonight. See how it goes.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? I hear there's some Steam catalog stuff going on.
Yeah, well, I have been I've been going through the old whiskey backlog slowly. See, I don't have a drinking problem, Dustin. I have a shopping problem. All right.
Nice. Okay.
Got a lot of bottles of not finished whiskey sitting on the shelf. So,
hmm
and or frankly, not even started whiskeys. See, so this one, last time I did the Westland Solum, and I had mentioned that I had the one of their other ones sitting unopened on the shelf. This one is
hmm
the wine cask finish. Uh, it's the one that's like it's Washington wine casks, that they're using to age whiskey. It is again, it's a single malt, American single malt.
Ooh.
Uh, they call this there's like their cask exploration
Ooh.
uh, series here.
So hot right now.
Yeah, they
Ah.
use a mix of Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, and Washington Red Blend casks.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Dude, that sounds like it would be one of those like cigar kind of style ones. I get like a
Mhm.
tan, get a tanniny kind of thing. That's looking forward to hearing about it.
The reason I chose this tonight is kind of a stretch, and it's because we're doing Bloody Rose, and this is red. It's like red wine finish. There's no
It's
good
close
tie.
enough.
It's
It's
close
close
enough.
enough.
Yeah, we
Mine's
sort of
even
gotten
worse. I'm like,
away.
well, there's a deer on mine, and I think there's deer in. They might hunt deer.
We've gotten
Yeah.
away. We've gotten a little bit away from like matching them up, but that's all right. All
Yeah.
right.
It was a great idea at the start, but then it becomes a very expensive idea after a little while.
Oh yeah, it becomes
You know?
very expensive very quickly.
Yeah. And then you see when you want to try it, you're like, do I go for the pun or do I go for the
Mm-hmm.
whiskey I actually want? Yeah. No. Let's see. I can go ahead and start us off since it's kind of revisiting. This is the Glenfiddich Gran Reserva. It's a 21-year single malt scotch aged in
Yeah.
rum barrels. And right off the bat, that's what it smells like. You get rum. Um, it's a lovely color that you might see in a 21 year. Not maybe as dark as you'd expect, um, but it's a nice, beautiful, beautiful color. And if you like rum, you'd probably really dig it. Uh, for me, it takes me back to some college. I think that's what happened the first time. It takes me back to some college experiences that weren't ideal. So So right now I'm living my college days with. But yeah, I guess like he's. I think I've changed my tune a little bit. Rum raisin really comes through on mine. The spiced rum type deal is coming through more. It's got a sweetness to it, spiciness to it. I think like Captain Morgan style. If you've ever had Captain Morgan's,
Mhm.
that's kind of what kind of shines through on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it's all right. I'm digging it.
Yeah.
How's it going over there for you?
All right. Well, this is let's see, 46%. It's got
Oh,
pretty
it's
good oily
dark.
legs. It's very dark. It's got
Yeah,
that
beautiful.
that sort of reddish color from the wine
Mm-hmm.
casks. Westland's like no chill filtering, no color added. That's like their one of their things, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like all in on that. So all this color is just from those wine casks. Very rich color on this.
Mm-hmm.
The smells that I've been picking up so far, there is some fruit, but it's very sort of very dried fruit kind of forward and not super strong. It's no fresh fruit at all. Most of what I'm getting is a combination of intense maltiness, just intense maltiness, combined with really pleasant sort of set of spices. It's got cinnamon, and I would even go so far as to say specifically, it's got that like, um, it's not the Saigon cinnamon, the other kind of cinnamon. Um, oh, it's there's two
I
kinds
know
of
what you're
cinnamon.
talking about. Yeah, yeah.
Ceylon or Sri Lanka or whatever. Like it's that other kind of cinnamon. It's
Oh,
got
dude,
that really strong and specific. It's
cool.
which is really unique. I usually when I get cinnamon from a whiskey, it's the other kind. It's the Saigon kind. Um, are you looking it up for me there?
Yeah, Ceylon, Cassia, Saigon, and Indonesian.
This would be the Ceylon.
Okay,
So I'm getting that Ceylon cinnamon, which is like a little
cool.
different. Really, really nice. And then it's got some other sort of spices that are coming with that, um that are less pronounced. So it's got, yeah, intense maltiness, that sort of Ceylon cinnamon, and then some dried fruit. It's a very pleasant nose. Um,
Cool.
Not particularly complex, but good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and every time I go back in for more, I smell the exact same smells. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's very consistent. Um, but what it has is really pleasant. Really, really like it. Some of those notes that you kind of expect in a scotch or a whiskey aren't there necessarily
Mm-hmm.
because the casks they've used is a different set of casks. So it's a sort of whole other set of smells. All right. I'm going to go for a
Nice.
sip.
All right.
Malty sweetness. I get some of that tannin. I get some of the red wine sort of dried grape flavor. There's like I almost get like a cassis. Like if I was like doing a tasting of like a red wine,
Mm-hmm.
like getting some cassis, just a little bit of that with that malty sweetness, and the spices are really strong.
Mm.
The spice is really strong. I've lost the cinnamon specifically, and I'm getting sort of a mix of holiday spices.
Mm-hmm.
It's also got there's a I'm gonna have to try to sip it. I'm gonna have to take a few sips to try to pick this out, but it's got another kind of element. There's like another layer there. It's
Mm-hmm.
much more complex on the palate than on the nose is sort of very very sort of straightforward. The palate has a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's like a almost like a savoriness. It's got like a savory sort of a sort of unctuous savoriness to it on like that sort of follows up that sort of sweet maltiness.
Okay.
Um, I'm having trouble putting it. It's almost as much one of those things where it's as much a sort of texture and mouth feel as it is a flavor. Um,
You said it
so it's
was in
hard.
Cabernet
Yeah,
Sauvignon barrels, right?
yeah. So it's Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah. I think it was Syrah.
So sweetness and Syrah,
Yeah,
and then
and then a blend.
hmm.
So it's going to be dry reds Um, it gets some of the tannin and some acidity almost.
Mhm.
I get just a little bit of pucker.
Ooh, okay.
Like if you have like a Pinot Noir or something, right? And you have like where just you just get that hint of pucker in your cheeks. I get that little. It just like turns on the saliva spigots just a little bit. I'm sure that's a
Gotcha.
real appetizing description there.
No,
The
I mean that's
saliva
very
spigots.
probably as much as me remembering college drinking parties with this stuff. Um, it's a cool flavor combo too. Of all the whiskeys we've drank, the pucker factor hasn't really been there for a lot of them,
Yeah.
any that I can think of. But I know what you're talking about.
Right now, the finish is fine on this
Mhm,
one. I don't. I the nose is good. The palate is good. The finish is maybe the one thing I don't love about this. It's fine.
mhm,
Uh, it's a little hot. It's not super smooth. It's got a hint of bitterness. It's not distractingly bitter. Like I'm one of those people that like I taste bitter things like really strongly.
oh yeah, you're like a super
Um,
taster, right?
yeah, but the bitterness thing, like if I eat something that's got like that is a little bit of like one of those bitter compounds, like it can be really intense bitter and just it tastes like I don't know, kind of earwax or whatever. Like, and it's just oh god, gross, horrible.
Nice.
And it doesn't take much. So this has a little bit of bitterness, but not an overwhelming amount, I would say, for me. So some people might not even notice it at all. But for me, it's a little bit, it's just not quite, it's not bad. It's just maybe slightly takes my attention in that direction. So it's sort of this hot, with slight bitterness. The redeeming thing, the thing that it sort of has that isn't a bad thing is you get a lot of those holiday spices with it. It's a fairly spicy finish.
Mhm,
Um, and maybe even I pull that cinnamon back out in the finish where I get more of the cinnamon specifically. So it's sort of this, and then obviously with the finish, like you're still tasting some of the flavors and stuff that you got on the palate, and so it's not bad. It's sort of fine. It has some redeeming factors, and but it's my least favorite part of the drink.
mhm.
But it's not, like I said, it doesn't ruin anything. And then once it sort of fades away, it just becomes like this long, lingering sort of slight maltiness
Mm.
in the back of the mouth, back of the throat. So
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
there you go. It's a very malty whiskey.
Yeah.
Like not, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But that's just what it is. It's very malty.
Mhm.
I mean, it is a
Yeah.
single malt after all.
Indeed.
I just sometimes you don't get as much malt. Sometimes the process takes some of those flavors out. They have left those flavors in on this one.
Mhm. Cool. Well, I think we're on opposite day here with our drinks here. Mine's about the opposite of that. It's dry, peppery, spicy. If you're into that, you'd love it. If you're me though, not a fan. This is one of those drams where it's a very specific dram for a certain type of person who likes a certain type of drink, and they just finish it in the rum casks. They age it. It's like normal Glenfiddich age for 21 years.
Yeah.
But the finish really imparts um, the rum stuff going on. And
Mm.
I don't know if it's just my taste memory or I've had too many, because it's not just college. It's we lived in Hawaii for a while and I got to try some like agricole rum,
Yeah.
the fancy stuff, and talk about your burnt tires and that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I got you.
It's just my palate does not enjoy the rum taste, and it's kind of that way through the whole thing. Um, and so it's sweet. It's got raisin cake kind of stuff. If you've ever like the rum raisin cake is what I think of, but not in the good way. It's like the ones that you buy from the import store that are like rum cakes from Europe.
Oh no.
It's kind of got that vibe going on. Now, I will say the finish is actually kind of cool. It's dry, it's sweet. It's got a little bit of like a coffee thing going on.
Yeah.
So there's a bitterness to it. Um, and the sweetness is kind of in the orange variety. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, but for me, if I'm going for a finish, I'd much prefer a smoky finish, a briny finish, a sweet lasting spice finish. The
Mhm.
dry, bitter finish that lasts is just not for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the cold doesn't really change it very much. So I don't know what
Okay,
the.
there you go.
Mhm.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yep. So I think this is still a big maybe for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
If
I got you.
you're into rum, you probably love it.
Yeah. Now for me, I would say, yeah, sure. I recommend it. It's interesting. The Westland
Mhm.
wine cask finish. Yeah, it's very affordable.
I like that.
Yeah, this one is very affordable. At least for me, I'm like support local. It's one of the better uh, Pacific Northwest local distilleries that I've had, and I've had a few.
Mhm.
And I think in terms of like where does Westland fall in sort of the global, I don't know, whiskey market? I think you could stack their stuff up with most of the stuff from Scotland. Honestly,
Mhm.
it's really good. Um,
Cool.
it's genuinely good, and more than it just being good, it's interesting. It's unique. What they're doing is different.
Mhm.
They're carving out their own place kind of in a way that very few distilleries in the U.S. Or in the Pacific Northwest are doing. Uh, most places are just sort of imitating the originals. They're not forging sort of a new way, right? And these
Mhm.
guys are doing that, and it's really cool. Yeah, I'm
See if it
liking the
floats your
finish
boat.
on this. I'm liking the finish on this more and
Look at
more
look at that.
as
Nice.
it goes. Like as it warms up, as it sort of opens up, and
Mhm.
as I take more sips, the bitterness is kind of disappearing a little bit. That those spices, the chocolate finish, like all of that stuff is now coming out and like
Oh,
expanding. Oh God, it's
well,
it's actually quite a beautiful dram.
well, good for you. No, just kidding. I'm very happy. Can't wait to steal some whenever I get over
Yeah,
there.
well,
Yeah.
I'll have to buy some bottles and buy some like little mini bottles and fill them up for you, and find a totally legal, safe means of getting them to you.
I bet we could do it.
Yeah, we'll make it
Yeah.
happen.
All right.
All these whiskeys you've been missing out on, we'll get them. We'll get
I
them to
know,
you.
man. I'll try to send some back. I think you'd like I think you'd like a couple of mines.
I don't know, I'd like to
Mine, but
like to try some of them. But,
yeah. Well,
all
shoot.
right.
I'm
Well,
yeah, let's move on. We
let's
got
let's talk book.
talking book.
Let's talk Bloody Rose.
Bloody Rose.
Bloody Rose by Nicholas Eames.
So this is not it's a sequel kind of, but it's not like a sequential sequel.
Mhm.
So it takes place after the first iteration. And the first books are, man, they were just like, I remember reading them, they were so fresh because it's basically like if you took like an 80s hair metal band and you made a fantasy novel off of those archetypes.
Mhm.
You had the lead singer who's just this like fucked up, drug addled, but wildly what's the word I'm looking for? Uh I'm
I think
tired
he
too, man.
said, yeah, no worries. So he said, Nicholas Eames said
Mm-hmm.
that the first book, Kings of the Wild, was a 1970s rock band.
Oh,
The
okay.
band, the band, the first band in the series,
So like Black
Kings of the
Sabbath,
Wild.
Dio
Yeah,
kind of style.
exactly. Or
And
like,
then Bloody Rose
yeah.
is more like the 80s hair
And then
metal
Bloody
kind
Rose,
of.
if that was the 70s, Bloody Rose is the 80s.
I like it.
This is the next generation,
Yeah.
right? So in the first book, like you were saying, we're following the Kings of the Wild, the first band. The whole book was about rescuing Bloody Rose.
Mm-hmm.
That was Golden Gabe, one of the main characters of the first book, Golden Gabe's daughter.
Yep. And spoiler, they save her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they say
At great cost.
Yes,
At great cost. But
at tremendous cost, and with
yeah.
a huge, beautiful, epic fight scene.
Yeah.
This book picks up, I don't remember how many years later, a number of years later.
Yeah, she's like an adult now,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has her own band. She is taken after her father. She has her own band. And my brain isn't working very well. The band is called Fable.
Mm-hmm.
She's got this whole group around her. And this time, we are not following the perspective from, Clay's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Following from a character named Tam.
Mm-hmm.
Tam is,
How'd you describe her? Like a
well, she's
kind of
the
like
bard.
a groupie.
She's the
Yeah.
bard. She's the bard of the group. So every band in this world, they're all these adventuring bands, right? Each band, in theory, has a bard. The bard writes songs, basically watches them fight, watches them do the thing, writes songs about them.
They're notoriously short lived too.
Yeah, they're notoriously short lived. Well, not all of them are, but the bards of the Kings of the Wyld were notoriously short lived.
Yes.
Yeah, like they just had like this constant, this stream of bards.
Yeah. There's no like middle quality bards.
Yeah.
There's only like good bards or dead bards.
Yeah. So Tam is the band's bard. She's the narrator of the book. So Clay was the narrator of the first book. Tam is the narrator of this book.
And the way you can kind of conceptualize it, going with the 80s hair metal band, like this is like a young kid who gets to travel along with like this famous rock band and chronicle their tales, write their songs and stuff like that. And so she's got kind of hero worship going on, and it's a lot of what we as a culture do, right? She idolizes Bloody Rose, and so then we get to watch all of that get washed away, and get not all washed away, but reality hits, and it's beautifully complicated and gritty, and full of intergenerational trauma passed down.
Yes, there's definitely some generational trauma passed down because Rose has had Golden Gabe for a father. Yeah. Golden Gabe was, it's like, imagine having like your dad is like drugged out, like drunk, like famous rock star.
Yeah, imagine if it was the Black Sabbath guy,
Ozzy.
Yeah, Ozzy Osbourne is your dad.
Yeah, imagine. Yes. What about Ozzy Osbourne?
Yeah, he's a little too chaotic.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, think about like if you had I don't know, Axl Rose.
Yeah, Axl Rose is what I was thinking.
Yeah, maybe you had Axl Rose as your dad. Imagine how fucked up you'd be. That would be messed up. You would Slash, you'd be like raised around like Slash, like,
which is what it was. That's what and to go right into the book, like that's the dynamic that's kind of the main thing of the book. Like here you got Bloody Rose. She simultaneously kind of like hates her father because he wasn't there, but also she's becoming him. And she kind of is him. And it's that crazy dynamic that you get when you grow older, where you see your parents, and like you see yourself become your parents a little bit. Except,
even if you didn't like them.
Yeah.
Even if you resent them, even if there's like, even if there's like, there's like a divide or like or you're estranged or whatever, you still see them in yourself. You still become them because that's just sort of who you are.
Yes.
That's who raised you, and that's who you're genetically, you're half them, and so
and it comes out in wonderful ways. You get to see it all through the chronicler's eyes. So that's the main thing that stuck out to me with the book. Like it's like a cool study on just what it means to become your parents, and her, and so because we're talking about books and writing and stuff like that.
Both. Well, I was gonna say it's a coming of age story, also, because you're coming of age. Tam's coming of age, and obviously we don't know her parents, so we can't say like but it's this interesting thing where you getting it from multiple perspectives,
Yeah.
right? You're getting that sort of that thing, that coming of age and that growing into your parents and all that stuff. You get it from multiple perspectives, and I think it was really the the perspective he chose, just Tam. I thought was a really cool perspective to choose because at least at the start, you're following just this, starry eyed kind of like groupie almost like who's just like, I'm with the heroes.
Yeah, Fable. Yeah.
I'm with Fable. And then shit gets real. I was just, thinking about that scene with the dragon, right? With the frost dragon. Where where Tam is like trying to figure out, like, she doesn't, it's sort of like a wake up scene, right?
Yep.
Where like suddenly it's like everything just sort of hits home and she's like, this dragon is just too big. You know what I mean? Like the scale of everything is it's just too big. And she almost just does it like, yeah, it's a really cool scene.
But and from a writing perspective too, I was trying to think about his superpower. I like thinking about authors, things that they excel at and that make them unique and worth reading. And I love the way he weaves his characterization in through his characters, because he did that with the first book. I have the sensation when I read it where I'm looking for all these clues to the character building that he does, because he does it through seeing the character a lot. Like, he doesn't do a lot of like stuff in their heads so much. There is some stuff going on in their heads, but also they're observing the other characters that you're interested in.
Yeah.
And in this book, it's all that, because it's Tam, and she's observing all the, and you get these little clues. Like, you get to know Bloody Rose really well, but based off of Tam's observations and her viewpoint. And it's such a cool way. It's like a, because I think it would have been kind of a boring, maybe typical book. Like, if it was inside Bloody Rose's head, you'd be like, all right, I've read this before. Okay, she's got, got her daddy issues here and this and that. But seeing it through Tam's eyes was a really cool way to get the reader into the characters, which it's just, yeah. And then, and scenes like with the dragon were a wonderful way to show the stakes, the scope of the books, which are always surprising, because at some level you're like, these are just people doing rock band stuff, and then he's like, nope, this is like hard fantasy. We're fighting some dragons and shit. Big things are happening. So really
and they're not like superheroes. I mean, they're people, right? I mean, and they have, and like Bloody Rose has like, she has like a legend to uphold, but at the same time, she's still just a person, and she could get squashed, and any of them could just get squashed by this dragon. And the way he writes it is really, I think it's really good. I think it's fantastic. That scene in particular, of all the sort of battle scenes in the book and the fight scenes in the book, that one's still the fight scene, the way it's like under the ice, like and they're like, the dragon's under the ice, like that.
Yeah,
that whole sequence is it's still, that one still sticks in my head. A lot of the book I had found that I actually didn't remember that well when I was listening to it again. Like, I mean, I remembered it and I was like, oh yeah, there's that, and there was sort of things getting, that were, I was getting kind of reminded of, or whatever, that I had sort of half forgotten or whatever, but that scene stuck really well. I'd say there are two scenes that stuck. The other one's a big spoiler at the very, 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 very end of the book. That's the other scene that stuck with me, because the thing that we haven't mentioned this whole time is that Bloody Rose has a daughter.
Yeah.
A little kid daughter, tiny little kid. Little one. An adorable little one. Yep. It was very cute, by the way, in the book. It was described very adorably. So it's sort of this like,
oh God, it's so tragic too.
It is so tragic, because she's was sort of left behind by her father, and she sort of was left behind by her, rock star father. and now she's the rock star and she's doing it to her little one, right?
Yep.
And yeah, that
Oh, and the stuff with Free
last
Cloud, man.
scene.
So
Oh
screwed up.
man, yeah.
Yeah.
So she's her boyfriend is Free Cloud, who's a
Mhm.
droon. The droon are these like, I think we talked about it last time. They're sort of stand-ins for elves, I think, but they're basically like these like rabbit people
Yeah.
who can sort of see the future just a little bit, like just a few seconds ahead, so they can kind of react to things, sort of supernaturally.
Yeah.
And they're from another like universe, I guess, in the multiverse, right?
Mhm.
And their home was destroyed, and there's a major character in this book. There's a couple of Droon in this book, or a few, three, something like that. I think. Anyway, and there's several of them, and they're very rare. There aren't very many in this world. And one of them is in Fable, and is Bloody Rose's boyfriend.
And Baby Daddy. We said it was kind of an exploration of like intergenerational trauma, what it means to become your parents, but part of having a child too is realizing that you have the opportunity to pass down what you had, pass down your own traumas, or
Yeah.
and it's really hard to bust out of that. And that's what's, yeah, Bloody Rose's character. She's so it's easy to hate her and not like her, and it's really easy to have like a lot of compassion for her.
Yeah.
And she's a real complex character like that. I don't know. How'd you feel about her as a character, just in terms of likability and stuff?
She was kind of likable, right? Like she's
Mm-hmm.
sort of this larger than life figure. I think Nicholas Eames did a really good job of capturing that sort of larger than life, um, like personality.
Mm-hmm.
Every scene she's in, she like is like a scene stealer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, part of that is that everybody's attention is on her, but because of who she is. But
Well, she's got that riz, man. Yeah, like her dad.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's got that just natural, like the Riz.
Yeah, I've heard that's what the kids say these days.
Kids are calling it. Yeah, charisma.
It sounded natural when I said it, right?
A little.
I think it sounded good for me.
It sounded better for no. It didn't sound as good when I did. I was gonna, but charisma.
Charisma.
That's what Riz is from, right? It's charisma.
Yep.
Riz. They got the Riz. Yeah, she's got charisma.
Yeah, and that
it's for real. Like, and she's and not just in the world. I mean, she genuinely does, right? Like you read it and you're like, she's a character that grabs your attention. Is liked, is sort of easy to like, just like Golden Gabe was, even though they're addicts and they're neglectful of their children and they're kind of fucked up. And like at the same time, like you're in the room with them, they're going to be like the center of the party, right? They're going to be the life of the party.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was my feeling with her too. Like she's so frustrating to see her fall into the same pitfalls, but also it's just, yeah. Because people like that in your life who just have something like a spark going on. But then being around them too long, it's like you can get burned a little bit by that spark. I had maybe a couple people in my life that were like that. It's cool. I think you really nailed the character type with it. And I was going to ask you too, and the feeling of this book, it felt different to me. Because the first book, in a lot of ways, it was kind of like, it was a little more campy. Like he was really going with like the band theme more. And he had some like really fun stuff. Like remember when there were all the like upstart bands who were trying to pretend to be Saga kind of?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
He had some cute stuff like that was like really fun. And this book seemed to have more less campy tone to it. And I was wondering, like, are there any other big differences like that you noticed with this book compared to the first ones?
Yeah, I agree. The tone was more serious in this book.
Yeah.
I think I agree with that. I think the tone was much more serious. It was sort of more serious, but also sort of more stylish in a way. It was sort of more flashy and less kind of so the first one had this like this, I don't know, I would call it like a road trip vibe.
Yeah.
right? Like a cozy, like you got all the boys are in the van and we're all going to go do the thing. And like, you know,
Because it was like they even had the scene where they're like, we're getting band back together. And it was like one of those
exactly.
action movies where they find the guy who's like, you know, out in
Yeah.
the back, hewing wood, and he's like, you son of a bitch. I
Yeah.
guess I'll go.
Yeah. You son of a bitch, I'm in. Yeah, exactly.
Which I love. I'm into it.
Oh, it was awesome. And
Yeah.
it was like all the tropes. I mean, they're beautifully like,
Yeah.
mwah,
Yeah.
beautifully
So good.
used. In this one, it's a bit different. It's got a different vibe to it. Obviously, it's got a different like plot, like story arc. This is like, I mean, these Bloody Rose is kind of like chasing glory. She's like chasing her father's glory. So like at the same time that she hates him and he's passing on this generational trauma, she's also like, and she's an addict and she has a terrible relationship with her with Free Cloud, her boyfriend slash baby daddy. Like she's also chasing glory,
Yeah.
right? And it's like the book has a whole different feel to it. Um, it's not worse. It's not like better or worse than the previous book. It's just different, and really quite good, quite entertaining. The action is bigger. Like talking about the dragon scene. That's not the only. Excuse me. That's not the only big action scene. There's a few more like really big actions. There's a big finish after this big battle. All kinds of stuff. But it's got this. Yeah, it's got this chasing her father's glory, trying to one up that, and sort of at any cost, right? Including death, including the abandonment of her child, including like, or leaving her kid behind. And on all of this stuff is she's just, yeah, there's sort of a way that it's just pushing and pushing and pushing to try to be better, but not actually better, like not in a good way, like in like a obsessive Captain Ahabby kind of way,
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, I like the way you put that because at the end, like the culmination is kind of an Ahabby thing. Like they've kind of committed to this course of action. They're going to fight. What were those called? The Dreadmaw.
Yeah,
Those are the bad guys.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a real cool, like, yeah, at the end, they're doing what they got to do, kind of regardless of the cost. And they kind of, the stakes are big. And I think Nicholas Eames really made the stakes worthy of the sacrifices and stuff. But yeah, and then you had said earlier there's something about like a spoiler at the end that you had wanted to talk about. Was that kind of the final battle and the final scene there? And
not even the final battle. It's what I mean. It's even called. It might even be in the epilogue or whatever. It's the other scene it's the epilogue. It's the other thing that stuck with me is the epilogue, like really stuck with me. So really quick, spoiler alert. So skip forward, I don't know, a minute or two. I'm just going to mention it real quick. Which is at the very end of the book. It's where Bloody Rose has survived and comes to reclaim her daughter.
Yeah.
Basically. Right at the end.
She's mommy now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and she's mommy now. Because she's been calling her by her daughter's been calling her by her name like the whole book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now she's mommy. And she comes to reclaim her daughter. And it's a really kind of touching moment. I don't wonder sometimes if Nicholas Eames hasn't written the third book because he doesn't want to fuck that up.
Yeah, because it kind of tied it up so nice,
Yeah, I mean, there's all this stuff that I want to know more about. Like I want to know more about the Droon and about I want to know more about that. That story arc that's been going on for both books behind the scenes, not behind the scenes, but it's sort of in the as a secondary sort of overarching plot line. The Druins, and they're getting back to their world and the sword that sort of cuts the, they can cut portals and like there's so much.
Shit. The world building was so good, right?
The world building's incredible. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to know more about that stuff.
Yeah.
right? I want a resolution there, and then the was like underground, like what would you call it, robot making like
Hmm.
factory from the anyway. Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much cool shit in this book about the Druins, and I want to know more. Um, but I understand if he just isn't writing more because he doesn't want to screw up the final scene where Ren is like, "Mommy," like I get that. I get
Yeah.
it because it's an amazing like finish. Like this is a book. This is a book where I got like I there were a couple of points where I was like almost like tearing up reading it.
Yeah.
And then I get to the mommy thing. I'm not mommy, I'm daddy, but I was like,
Yeah.
oh god. Because at that point you think that there was a different outcome, right? Like you think
Yeah.
something bad happened, something terrible happened, and you're like really sad.
Yeah.
And then there's this reveal at the very end that's just like sort
Yeah.
of heart wrenching, but also relief, but also like it's just really emotional moment in the
Yeah.
series that the book ends on. Like, boom, it's over, and you're like, you just need a yeah, a little, I had a little,
Yeah.
I don't know, little chili pepper in my eye, a
Yeah.
little bit
Good man, proud manly
of
tears falling.
manly, yeah.
My kid always says, like, Daddy, if you have to cry, just let them fall to the ground. So it's always weird. Like,
that's
where'd you get
that's
that from?
that's
Yeah.
adorable though.
Yeah, it's pretty. Um, but yeah, it's funny that that's my whole, and I love it. It's almost like an allegory for like getting therapy or something. Like she had to go through the battles, do the examination and make the mistakes and all
Mhm.
that. And then she gets to try to be what her dad wasn't to her, be the
Yep.
parent that she never had. Yeah, it's beautiful. Um, and I also, yeah, that's a rare, maybe that's another gift this writer has, in addition to his characterization and his world build. Just the ability to make your reader feel emotions is
Mhm.
it's a real cool ability, and it's something
Yep.
I always seek. And I remember feeling that same thing, man. I think I said that in our first podcast too. I was kind of pissed that he never wrote more because,
Yeah.
yeah, you want to be in the world a little bit. He made a very interesting world. But I didn't look at it from that perspective. Like, yeah, I don't know if I don't think I'd want to mess it up or write too much. It's nice to have an ending, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is incredible at making his characters, feel real, making them empathetic so that when
Mm,
something happens like that, and then telling the story in such a way that when something happens, you feel real strong emotions uh about, about what happened, right? And I there aren't a lot of authors who can do it that well.
yeah.
There are some, but it's not like unique, but it's special when you find an
Yeah.
author like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't really expect. That's what I like about it too. It subverts your expectations because when I first started reading it, it's like, oh, it's about it's a band thing,
Yeah.
and then he hits you with some deep shit. You're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm feeling feelings.
How dare you
And I'm
make me feel
entertained.
feelings? No.
Yeah, how dare you? Exactly. Well, shoot. I had heard kind of whispers that there were more Nicholas Eames books coming out. Have you heard any scuttlebutt?
I have not heard Scuttlebutt. He moved over to Blue Sky from Twitter.
Okay.
I am on Blue Sky. I follow him on Blue Sky. I haven't seen him say anything about a third book. Last thing that I saw was a couple years ago, and it was just like I'm working on it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There was no actual like real update. But
Okay.
I do know the last thing that I heard was that it was supposed to be called Outlaw Empire.
Yeah, I read a little bit too, and he's on Goodreads. He'll say stuff on there and answer questions. He said he's kind of working on something, but I think he got hit by like the COVID slash we live in interesting times writer's block. That a
Yeah,
lot of writers have been impacted by because it is some crazy shit going on in the world. It's a little hard to. Not everybody can be Sanderson and bang out 4 or 5 a year, But yeah, he's definitely someone to watch and keep track of because he's a gem. I love his writings. He's one of those guys I always check up on, kind of like the Gentleman Bastard series.
But yeah, as far as Bloody Rose, man, I highly recommend it. I know we said that it's standalone. You ought to read the Kings of the Wyld first. There is definitely, well, it isn't a direct sequel. There's a lot of background that will be very helpful and a lot of world building that will be very helpful for appreciating this book. But I absolutely recommend the series. 100%. Everybody should go check it out. It's very entertaining. Solid sort of modern fantasy book. It's not grimdark, so don't worry about that. It's very sort of heroic.
Yeah.
There's like a few sort of dark or grim features in it, but it's not grimdark. It's excellent. Go check it out.
Yeah.
Very fun. Very fun.
I agree with all that. Yeah, it's fun. I will say, like, on a personal note too, I mean, I grew up listening to like rock music and have a lot of it scratches a really cool itch where you've seen all these crazy characters, and this is like, it's like reading a biopic of like Black Sabbath or one of the big metal groups, and but in a fantasy setting, and it's really good fantasy.
Yeah,
it's so well written. So yeah, I couldn't recommend it enough.
I actually, for some of the action sequences in this, I actually had, and I don't know if he did this on purpose or like it was, but there were certain sequences where like a song from that era would like pop into my head while I was reading it, which was, it was really cool.
I'm pretty sure he has like a playlist to listen to while you read his books.
He does, and he does.
So I bet he wrote them like listening to that with that in mind. That'd be really
cool. For sure.
Yeah. Oh man, it was so good. Right. Yeah, go read it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we're done.
It feels good.
Cool. So thank you all for listening. Glad you joined us, and hope to see you on the next one. Have a good night.
Stay gold.